So we're at a skating rink. What would be one basic physics principle that comes to your mind when we talk about ice skating?
Well, the first one that comes to mind has to be with what ice skaters do when they start spinning around, right? So that's conservation of angular momentum. They start off with their arms out and start spinning, and then they bring their arms in and they start spinning faster. And that, I think, is one of the coolest things there is.
Very
So,
cool. What else about skating? Can you maybe talk about like the friction with the ice?
yes. So almost all of the winter sports are just reduction of friction. So ice skating is kind of interesting, and that actually relates to the runners on sleds as well. But for ice skating, you have ice is a very low friction material, and there's always been arguments about why that's the case. So for a long time, people said, well, the pressure of the skates would actually melt some of the water, so you'd go on a surface of water. Turns out that's not really accurate. What's really going on is the surface of ice is a mixture. It's almost water-like, but it's also not water. It's also ice-like, so it doesn't flow as easily as water. That is that small surface layer of material that's between solid and almost liquid. That's what's doing it, but it's the nature of ice. Even if you get down to like minus 150 Fahrenheit, right? That's cold. Even if you get down there, there's still about a molecule layer of material that is still water-like, and it gets thicker as it gets warmer.
I had no idea. I learned something new today. Thank you.
So,
While still on ice skating,
mhm.
the way I want to kind of relate this back to the folks at home is, do you have a tip or some sort of physics, something that can make them better at ice skating? Maybe how they go around a turn, maybe talking about a spin again.
Well, okay, so I think tips for skating, I mean, one, of course, it's balance, something I do not have. But the other thing is going around corners, right? You always have to be banking into the corner. I think, just like with bicycles, on ice, I always have found it frightening to go around corners like that, where you have to lean into the turn, but it's critical that you do that. Okay, so that's one thing. As for the spinning, it really is starting off with your arms outwards and pulling them in, right? Just making yourself smaller is going to make you spin faster. So, and of course, keeping your eyes on a particular point. So,
Very good. Okay, we'll move on to sledding since you brought up the runners on the
yeah.
sled again. We've kind of already covered friction because that's when you brought that up.
Yeah.
Maybe talk a little bit about gravity, because
Sure.
that's pretty basic, and how that would
Yeah.
affect sledding.
Yeah, so I mean, going down, right, when we talk about sledding, right, we're always going downhill, right? So we actually have gravitational force pulling us down that hill. Steeper the hill, the more acceleration we have, the faster we can go in a shorter period of time. Um, Big thing there, again, snows are different, right? I mean, every snow is different. And when you're talking about sledding, you're talking about friction. So if you have a hard packed surface, then you want a runner sled. Picking your sled to go with the surface is important if you want to go fast. So you want a runner sled, much more like ice skates if it's hard packed snow. But if it's a fluffy snow, which seems to be more like what we get around here, you want to use something more toboggan-like, bigger surface area. But if you want to go fast, you've got to do something to the surface of the sled. You can't just use anything. Most plastic sleds, they're pretty slippery, so they're not bad, but a wood sled, you have to wax the surface if you want to go fast. Make it not stick to the snow.
I think you've kind of figured this out, because you already beat me to what can people do. That's perfect. That's exactly what I need. Anything else about sledding you wanted to add? Because you kind of hit everything I wanted.
Yeah, well, no, other than sledding is fun. But
Would you prefer sledding to ice skating?
yeah, sledding. 'Cause my ones are sledding and cross country skiing.
Okay. So then we'll move on. We'll tackle cross country skiing, and then we'll move on to like mountain skiing. I'm southern,
Sure.
so I don't really know how all that works. So cross country skiing, like what kind of snow do you need for that to be successful?
Well, it varies. I mean, you can ski on any of the types of snow, and it partly depends on your skis. Most skis today are it's not necessary to wax them, so you don't have the problem of choosing what wax to use for what snow. But with the skis today, it's really You always want to have a base for the cross-country skiing. If you don't have a base and you send us to go right down to the ground, no good there. But mostly, it seems to me, a lot of it's just technique than anything else.
So what would you recommend as good technique for cross-country skiing?
Well, besides balance, it really is learning how to push off with the skis is really what it is. Going up hills, going down hills is a little easier, I think, but going up the hills is how do you push off, right? So it's something to practice. I still think of it as similar to ice skating in many ways. So.
Very good. And then I was going to talk about, snowboarding and skiing and that kind of thing, but I feel like most of those principles would be similar to sledding because we talked about gravity.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd want to add for that topic?
Oh, let's see here. The only thing, one of the big things with sledding has always been steering, right? I mean, sledding is around historically. Steering is a little bit more, a little more control when you talk about snowboards and skis, right? A lot of it is edge dependent and how well you can control those edges, which is something you really, especially toboggans, you really don't have much control on those. So with that, right, you're talking about having to cut into the surface with the edges to give you a little bit more friction on side to side to allow you to make the turns. Right? So I think that's sort of a critical part to it.